This 5-minute movie review is about the 2019 film Pet Sematary. Now, Pet Sematary is directed by Kevin and Dennis Widmeyer. It was written by Stephen King and adapted to the screen by Matt Greenberg and Jeff Bueller. Now, Pet Sematary is actually a remake of the eponymous film from 1989. And the plot lines for the two movies, the 89 Pet Sematary and the 2019 Pet Sematary, are almost identical. And that plot is as follows. Dr. Lewis Creed and his wife Rachel, portrayed by Jason Clarke and Amy Seimetz, respectively, have moved to a small town of Ludlow, Maine. They've moved from Boston, Massachusetts. They wanted a break from the big city. They wanted to move to a smaller area, and so they moved to rural Ludlow, Maine. But almost immediately after the move, Rachel kind of feels uneasy. It's almost like they made a mistake in moving there. And that feeling, that gut feeling, is confirmed shortly thereafter when Rachel and her daughter Ellie go on a walk. And while on this walk, they see at the back of the property a small group of neighborhood kids dressed in masks headed towards a pet cemetery. Turns out the kids are burying one of their animals in this pet cemetery that just happens to be at the back of Lewis and Rachel's property. Now, Rachel's very concerned because in and of itself, that's a very strange thing to have in the back of your property, a pet cemetery. But she's also concerned for her young daughter, Ellie, who's about to turn 9, and for her infant son, Gage, as well. Now, a few days later, Lewis and Rachel have the pleasure of meeting their neighbor, Judd, who is portrayed by John Lithgow. Judd is an elderly man who has lived in Ludlow, Maine his entire life. And he kind of smooths the feelings of unease of the family. He's a very friendly man. Everyone takes to him. Everyone likes him. Even Lewis and Rachel's cat, Churchill, warms up to Judd very quickly. Well, after meeting Judd a couple days later, Judd comes back to the house with some bad news. He tells Lewis and Rachel that he found their cat, Churchill, on the side of the road. Evidently, Churchill was hit by a truck and he is stone cold dead. Well, later that evening when Judd and Lewis go to bury Churchill, Judd tells Lewis, you know what? Let's not bury Churchill here in the pet cemetery. Let's go a little bit further back on your property. There's a different place we need to bury him. And so Lewis and Judd proceed to go further back beyond the pet cemetery to a very strange and unsettled land, and they bury Churchill there. And lo and behold, a few hours later, Churchill comes back, alive again. Unfortunately, though, he's just a little bit different than he was before. He seems a little bit off. He seems kind of aggressive, maybe even a little bit evil. And over the next few days, the changes in Churchill get worse and worse and worse. And his behavior gets so unusual that even Ellie, his best friend, does not want him in the house anymore. And so Lewis drives Churchill several miles away from the property and abandons him. A couple days later, Lewis and Rachel and Gage are celebrating Ellie's 9th birthday. And guess who comes back? Churchill, meandering down the road. And being excited and happy to see her best friend again, Ellie runs out into the road to greet him. And seeing his big sister run out to the road, the little toddler, Gage, does the same thing. Well, sadly, a truck comes barreling down the road. The driver's not paying attention, and he hits and kills one of the children. And Lewis is now faced with quite the conundrum. Does he bury his child and let them go, or does he turn to the pet cemetery and try and resurrect his child? Well, I think we all see this coming. He turns to the pet cemetery, and the remainder of the film is him having to deal with the consequences of that choice. While the 1989 version was just a little bit more gory and a little bit more graphic in its presentation of the story, this film is a little bit more psychologically based. It's a little bit more slow burn as far as the ratcheting up of the tension. Overall, it's an extremely well-written film with very good performances from all of the actors. And I would say two actors that deserve the most special attention would be John Lithgow in a supporting role as Judd, who does an enormous credit to this film. And also to the real star of the show, Jette Lawrence, who portrays Ellie. Jete Lawrence's performance of Ellie throughout this film is truly outstanding. She captures all possible facets of the character in this movie, particularly in the second half of the film where she truly stretches her abilities as a very young actress and I think does simply an outstanding job. Now, as I mentioned previously, Pet Sematary is not extremely gory. I would say it's not even gory at all. There's certainly a couple of scenes with blood in it, but for the most part, this version of Pet Sematary relies upon psychological tension and psychological horror to get its point across. And in doing so, it does a superb job. So if you like the first version of Pet Sematary, I will say you will probably like this version. If you never saw the '89 film, I would certainly recommend you see both. And I think you'll agree that this version holds up quite well to the original. As such, I give Pet Sematary 4 out of 5 stars. It is quite enjoyable. It is very well done. It's well written and well acted, with particularly great performances from John Lithgow and Jete Lawrence. And just as a little bonus, there is an alternate ending you might want to check out that's available on YouTube. Certainly wait until after you see the film. I think the alternate endings may be just a little bit better than the original, even the theatrical version. In any case, I hope you enjoy this movie. God bless each and every one of you. I'll talk to you later. Bye.